So looking at the first example, it's one whole question, but when I look at it, for the first step, I think of it as like two separate questions, or there's two separate parts. I'm going to do this part, and then I'm going to do this part. And again, if you've been keeping up with this stuff all along in the last week that we've been working with this algebra, you're hopefully getting to the point where you're starting to predict what your answer is going to look like. That's really, really good. If you're thinking about, well, I know what squaring a binomial, I kind of know what that does. I know what multiplying two binomials together, I know what that should look like, what the first step looks like, what the next step looks like. And that just makes it easier to then, again, analyze like a new kind of question. So when I multiply the first two, what do I get? I want you to do this. You can go ahead and do it yourself, but what do you get when you multiply x plus 3 times x plus 2? So go ahead and do that. Don't worry about the second part yet. Who can tell me what you got? Taylor?
X squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 6.
Awesome. So you got that from x times x is the x squared, and x times 2 is the 2x. 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 2 is 6. So again, we talked about this yesterday. 4 terms. And that's good. There's 2 of them are like terms, so they're going to go together. But we're not done the first line yet, so we're not going to do that yet. But that's what would happen. Again, talking about that predicting of what would happen. Now, what about the x minus 4 all squared? There are different orders that you could do a question like this. So the order that we're going to do it now, you might think that's not how I would do it. That's fine. Okay. What is x minus 4 all squared? And you might think, what's the common mistake that people make? What they think it is, but it's not. Thomas? Yeah, they think you just square both parts in the bracket. But what it actually means, I'm going to write this out, is plus x minus 4, right? That's what it actually means. The brackets times itself. Okay, so next line, I'll do a little bit of work with those first 4 terms, because why not? So that ends up being x squared, 2 plus 3 is 5. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So x times x and x times negative 4, and negative 4 times x and negative 4 times negative 4. So I get plus x squared minus 4x minus 4x. There's those 2 terms in the middle that are identical. And those came from the last part. Those came from the first part. And now at this point, it doesn't matter that these 3 came from the first part and these 4 came from the second part. They're all like terms. They're all being added together. I just look for the ones that are like each other and add them together. So I've got 2 x squared terms. X squared plus x squared is 2x squared. 5x minus 4x is x minus another 4x. That's going to be negative 3x. And 6 plus 16 is 22. We're done. We can't mash it all together anymore or anything like that. Yeah. You can't do them in like separate areas and then mash them together at the end. So if you want to do that, like sort of do the first part, but keep writing the second part on the same line. You'd have to show me exactly what you mean, but as long as you kind of write the whole thing in one line every time, then that's fine, yeah. Definitely. Okay, let's try one more. There's a little trick to this one, but you can probably get most of it. Why don't you try that first part? Okay, hopefully you got that. And watch what I'm going to do here. So put your pencil down for a second and watch. Minus bracket. This is something that people will make a mistake, so it's just something you want to pay attention while we're doing this together right now and try to recognize it and remember what to do. Because people, I guess, use their intuition or they guess at it and then get it wrong. I'm going to do this I'm going to multiply these guys, so it's going to be a squared plus 4a plus 2a plus 8, right? And the first part, hopefully you got that right. In this case, I'm going to just collect like terms for each of them individually, so that part's easy. Minus 4a, minus 5, minus bracket. But notice how I still have that minus bracket. That's what I'm talking about. A squared plus 6a plus 8. So think about what this minus sign means. It means I've got these two brackets multiplied together, and I'm subtracting these two whole brackets. Like I'm not just subtracting the first part, I'm subtracting the whole thing. Subtracting this whole thing from this thing. What is this whole thing? Well, it's that. So I'm subtracting this whole thing from this whole thing. If I drop the brackets above, it would look like this. It would look like, it would look like minus a squared plus 6a plus 8. But it should be a squared minus 4. It's not going to change that part. Minus a squared minus 6a minus 8, right? It should be distributed through like that. So if you forget these brackets up here while you're expanding that one, then you're going to end up with the wrong stuff down here that you're subtracting. But if you think about you're subtracting that whole thing, so I should be subtracting this whole thing, then that might help you remember what to do. So now I look for for like terms. So a squared minus a squared is 0. That's gone. Negative 4a minus 6a is negative 10a. And negative 5 minus 8 is negative 13. There's that integer math again. Any questions? It's worth thinking about for a minute. Trying to find a way to remember it when it comes up again, because I'm sure it'll come up again at some point.